Hi, this is Steve. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a custom tracking domain using a CNAME DNS record. But before we get started, I want to explain why it's so important that you set up a custom domain. To do that, let's take a look at a tracking link that I've created called Books on Bigfoot. Right now, you can see that it's set up using the default account URL, www.clkmg.com, followed by my username, which is Steve. Your account URL will be www.clkmg.com, followed by your username. Right now, we're both sharing the same www.clkmg.com domain, along with all the other ClickMagick users. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except that if one single user does something unethical, like send spammy email or post a spammy message to Facebook, the domain www.clkmg.com could be blacklisted for a short time until we get things straightened out. Now, this isn't unique to ClickMagick in any way. You find it with autoresponders, you find it with page builders, you find it with all sorts of online marketing tools, and that includes tracking tools like ClickMagick. This is well known among online marketers, so it's common practice to use custom domains. It's considered a best practices technique because it prevents you from being blacklisted when other marketers do something unethical. By the way, if you've already created a custom domain for your autoresponder, your page builder, or other online service, you can use that same custom domain with ClickMagick, no problem. I'll show you how in just a second. To get your custom domain set up, I'm going to suggest that you open another window so that you can watch this video in one window while you do the setup work in the other window. Just pause the video at each step, do the step it just showed, then continue. So let's get started. First, let's go to the FAQ on this topic because we'll be referring to it several times in this video. It's up here in the Help menu under FAQs. Let's choose the Custom Tracking Domain section, and then let's click on What is the recommended way to set up a custom domain? Now, you can go ahead and read through this FAQ, but I'm going to walk you through each step in this video. The first step is to purchase your domain. Now, you can get your domain from any registrar you want, but GoDaddy and Namecheap are two popular ones. If you've never bought a domain before, it's kind of cool. Let me show you how. Let's click on the Namecheap link. All domain registrars have a section on their homepage that will allow you to type in a domain name and see if it's available, and if so, you can buy it. Let's go ahead and type in something silly like buymystuff.com, and let's click search. And we see that it's unavailable. Somebody's already bought that. But the page does show others that are similar and are available. So if you like those, go ahead and buy one of those. It also shows you what the domain will cost the first year and then every year thereafter. Now, all you need is the domain. So when you go to buy it, you don't need to buy any of the add-ons that they suggest. Now, if you don't see a name here that you like, just hit the back button and try something else until you find one you do like. So let's close this tab and go back to ClickMagick. Once you have your domain, then you need to decide which style you want to use for your tracking domain. You can use the style that looks like yourdomain.com and www.yourdomain.com, or you can use the style where you put an additional word in front of your domain. If you're going to use your domain only for tracking, you can use this first style, but if you've had the domain for a while and you're already using it for a website or a blog you've been working on, or it points to a page builder or some other service, then you have to use the second style. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up both styles, but if you're at all unsure about which style to use, I'm going to strongly suggest that you use the second style because it will always work and you can't hurt anything. Besides, you can always come back and implement the first style later on. I'm going to show you how to do this in Namecheap, but it's very similar for other domain registrars. So let's do this with my domain, bestcoolproducts.com. I already have Namecheap open here to its dashboard, and you can see my domain right here, bestcoolproducts.com. To add the necessary CNAME DNS record, we need to click on the Manage button over here. Next, we want to confirm that for our name servers, we have basic DNS showing. If you're showing web hosting DNS here, you can't use the Namecheap DNS editor that I'm showing here. Instead, you'll have to use the DNS editor in the cPanel control panel that came with your website. The steps are very similar, and we have a written setup guide for cPanel in the FAQ. In the Namecheap control panel, we need to click on the Advanced DNS button. These are the default DNS records when you set up a new Namecheap domain. I'm going to leave these alone for now. Those refer to bestcoolproducts.com and www.bestcoolproducts.com. I'm going to create a new subdomain that we'll use exclusively for tracking called track.bestcoolproducts.com. We'll need to add a new CNAME record to do that, so let's click on the Add New Record button, and we'll choose CNAME record. For the host, I'm going to enter the name track, so we'll have track.bestcoolproducts.com, but you can choose just about anything you want here. For the target, we need to paste in a special ClickMagick domain, and to do that, we have to go back to the FAQ. We have to scroll down a bit, and there are two domains to choose from right here. For use with tracking links, which includes split tests, you would use this domain, and for use with rotators, you would use this domain. We're going to be using tracking links and doing split tests, so I'm going to copy the domain for that. Now let's go back to Namecheap and set this up. In the target field, I'm going to paste in the ClickMagick domain that we just copied. Now let's go ahead and save the changes. To do that, we click on the check mark right here. And that's it. That's all you need to do to set up your tracking domain using a CNAME DNS record. The next step is to tell ClickMagick about your new domain. We'll use ClickMagick's domain manager to do that, but first you'll need to wait at least 30 minutes to give the settings a chance to propagate through the internet, or ClickMagick won't find the domain. So let's take a quick 30-minute break. Okay, we've waited 30 minutes. Now let's go back to ClickMagick and enter this new tracking domain into the domain manager so ClickMagick knows about it. We need to go to the Tools menu, choose Domain Manager. And now we enter the domain, which is track.bestcoolproducts.com. We're using CNAME A record for use with tracking links. We're not going to cloak this domain. If you want to learn more about that, just click here where it says Read This First. Next, we need to click on the Add Custom Domain button. Now, you may get an error when you click that. If you do, just follow the instructions to correct the problem and try again. So let's click the button. And here we see we have an error message. So let's talk about this. When you enter a domain in the domain manager, ClickMagick tests the domain to make sure it's set up correctly. So if ClickMagick allows you to add the domain, then you know you've set it up perfectly and you're ready to start using your new custom domain. But if you get an error like we have here, you need to read what the error says and follow the instructions. Here it says, this domain doesn't seem to exist. There are only two possible reasons. Reason number one, you did not enter the correct domain. What we see all the time is people forgetting to include the subdomain with their custom domain. You can see up here that I tried to add track.bestcoolproducts.com. I included the track part, which is the part that people often forget to include in the domain manager. Because I remembered to include my subdomain, reason number one isn't the problem I'm having. Now, obviously, if you use the word go or rotator or something else, you would have to make sure that you include that in the front of your domain in the domain manager. Okay, reason number two, the DNS for your domain hasn't propagated yet. This is the most common reason for a domain not being accepted. You can read right here, when you set up a new domain, it can take anywhere from 1 to 24 hours for the DNS to propagate across the internet. You can Google internet propagation if you want to learn more about it, but it's sort of like when a town or city that you live in builds a new road. That road doesn't show up in your car's GPS immediately. It takes time. DNS records are the internet's roadmap, and when you change something, it takes time for those changes to take place. So just be patient with this. If you get this error, just try again in an hour or so. Now, if you've waited more than 4 hours, I would certainly double check your settings. And if you've waited more than 24 hours, send us a ticket with your domain name and a screenshot of your DNS settings, and we'll take a look. So let's wait an hour, and then we'll hit the back button and try again. Let's go back and click the Add button again. And this time it added the domain. It's listed as CNAME A record with redirect. Redirect here simply means that it's not cloaked. And if you need to delete this domain at any time, you can click on the trash can icon right here. Now let's go test it. Let's go back to our links. Let's open Books on Bigfoot. Let's come down to the tracking link. We currently have our account URL selected as the domain. Let's change that to use the custom tracking domain we just set up, track.bestcoolproducts.com. Let's choose Save Changes. And now let's go back into the link. Here Here we see the new tracking link with the custom domain, so let's copy it and paste it into a new tab to make sure that I hook that up correctly. And the books pop up. That means that track.bestcoolproducts.com is set up correctly. Now, if you wanted to set this up so you could use the domain all by itself, such as bestcoolproducts.com with nothing in front of it, you would set that up using an A record in your DNS settings. I'm going to show you how to do this, but you can't use this A record approach if the domain has existing content, such as a website or a blog. You'll break your website. To set this up, we need to go back to Namecheap. While we're here, I'm also going to set up the www version of bestcoolproducts.com, since people often ask about that as well. We're going to do that exactly the way we set up the track version a moment ago. First, we need to delete the existing default www entry and the entry for the domain with nothing in front of it. That's the @ entry. @ means nothing in this case. So let's delete those by clicking on the trash can icons right over here. Now let's rename the track entry. Let's click on track and enter www. And let's click save. That takes care of www.bestcoolproducts.com. To handle the domain all by itself, we need to add an A record. So let's click on the Add New Record button. Let's select the A record. For the host, we're going to enter the @ sign, which means no host name. And for the IP, we need to go get that from the Magick FAQ. Let's click on Help. Choose FAQs, custom tracking domains. What is the best way to set up a custom domain? Okay, now we're back in the FAQ, so let's scroll down to where it says Step 3, Add A Record. You can see here there are two sets of IP addresses, one for tracking links, which includes split tests, and another for rotators. We're creating a custom domain for tracking links, so let's copy one of the first IPs. Now let's go back to Namecheap, and I'm going to paste the IP address into the target. Now let's click the check mark to save. Now both bestcoolproducts.com and www.bestcoolproducts.com should work as custom tracking domains. The final step is to add the domains to the domain manager, but first let's wait 30 minutes to give the changes a chance to propagate. Okay, now let's go back to Magick to see if we can add the domains yet. Let's go to Tools and select the Domain Manager. Let's click on the trash can icon to delete track.bestcoolproducts.com. And now let's add our two new domains. First, let's add bestcoolproducts.com, CNAME A record, with tracking links, and no cloaking. Now let's add it. Okay, now let's add www.bestcoolproducts.com. I'm going to go through this pretty fast. You can see that both domains are now set up. We'll test them just like we did before, so let's go ahead and click on the Links menu. And open Books on Bigfoot. Let's choose www.bestcoolproducts.com and save. Let's open the link. Copy it, and paste it into a new tab. That works. Now let's close this page and try the domain by itself. Let's choose bestcoolproducts.com and click Save. Let's open the link, copy it, and paste it into a new tab. And this works too. So now you can see that bestcoolproducts.com works correctly, and so does www.bestcoolproducts.com. But I need to point out that you cannot use these domains all by themselves without link IDs, or you'll get an error. Let me show you what I mean. Let's paste the link we just tested into the address bar again. You can see the tracking domain followed by the link ID, Bigfoot. I'm going to delete the word Bigfoot so there's no link ID with this tracking domain. So if you just use the domain without the link ID, Magick will get the click but have no idea which link to send the click to. That's an error. It's like sending a letter through the mail to a city but leaving off the street address. The post office will get the letter but have no idea where to deliver it to, so they stamp the letter with an error message that says insufficient address. That's exactly what Magick does. Let's hit the Enter key and I'll show you what I mean. If you're testing your tracking domain and you get this error, this is perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong here. It just means that your tracking domain is missing the link ID. Now, if you want your tracking link to go to a particular link when the link ID is missing, you can set that up in your user profile. Let me show you how to do that. Let's go back to Magick. Let's click on the user menu and select Profile. From here, let's click on the Traffic tab. And right here, you have the backup URL that you can enter. All bad clicks will get sent to this URL. Now, typically, you would set this to a valid tracking link with a default offer that you want to promote and track. That's all there is to it. So in this video, I've shown you how to set up tracking domains using a CNAME DNS record and how to redirect just the domain itself using an A record. If you have any additional questions about how to set this up, just contact us at the help desk and we'll be glad to get those answered for you. This is Steve with Magick. Thanks so much.